Guys, thank you so much for coming in here to see me at Body by Design. Okay, today's video is the varying faces of depression. Okay, as you heard me state before, depression can pretty much hit at any age. So a depressed 6-year-old is probably going to look different than a depressed 80-year-old. Okay, so we're going to have to distinguish a few similarities and the big differences between, a 6-year-old life and an 80-year-old life. When it comes to kids, it's been proven that, depression can kick in as young as 4 or 5 years old, depending on the household that it is brought up in. There is a direct connection between depressed children and obesity. Okay? So, for instance, I had this one client who smoked. Okay, and she was talking to me about her child and how she was only about 5 years old, and her child was overweight and ate too much, and they were finding her daughter waking up in the middle of the night or breaking into the cupboards and stuff and eating food when no one was looking. And they were having a really hard time, like trying to padlock the fridge and stuff. And she was asking me why, because I had explained to her when I was a kid, I was born chubby, went skinny for a couple years, and got chubby, and it just sort of progressed. So I was about 13 when I leaned out, and then I got bigger again in my later teens and early 20s. So I had to explain to her that the reasoning behind her overeating is probably a couple of different things. It probably had a lot to do with the separation between parents. It probably had something to do with the fact that the child has always been smoked around. So, she's 5, 6 years in secondhand smoke. So she's got a craving that she doesn't even know that she has. So she's unable to link up how to control her craving. So it comes out in things like mood disorders and overeating and obesity. I believe it was Stanford in 2009 did a research paper with over 9,000 students. They were all pretty much tweens and teens, okay? So anywhere from about 10 years old to about 17, 18 years old, okay? They took all the ones that were obese, tested them, and then kept track of them for 2 years. And what they found out was that the depressed teen that was already obese was twice as likely to be even more obese the following year, and it just being a huge continuous cycle of just building and building and building. Now, for the other guys, the guys that were depressed but they weren't overweight or obese in any manner, what they ended up proving was that within 2 years, these depressed teenagers were 10 times as likely to become obese and to become withdrawn from the world. So we really have to start taking our health into consideration and the health of our children. Okay? If your child is overweight, it is not your child's fault. If your child is addicted to sugar, it is not your child's fault. Okay? If you're having a hard time sending your kid to class without them acting up, you cannot be sending them to school on Fruit Loops. Okay, my mom used to try to do that stuff too, because back in the day, no one knew any better. Because, I'm 30 years old, so I was just being born into the sort of chemical food age, right? And now we're 30 years into this, and we're starting to see everybody dying of, cancer, heart disease, all kinds of brain malfunctions that were never around before we started consuming all this sugar, okay? They've actually proved that sugar causes cancer, but the FDA is not going to let that out, and that's a whole nother video, okay? But your kids, depression, and obesity are all linked together, okay? Now, you might think you're living a perfect life, but you're not looking through life through a young person, whether they're 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, okay? And I'm going to tell you parents this. All of you seem to think that you can fool your kids. Let me tell you something. Your kids are smarter than you are. And the younger they are, the smarter they are. Think about what these children actually accomplish in the first 5 years of their life. They learn how to walk, jump, run, crawl, climb over things, on top of things, underneath things. They learn how to use, doors and toilets and use the washroom. They learn how to fluently speak whatever language you speak. In fact, I was just on a webinar a couple of months ago where a woman was saying a child can really learn as many languages as you want to teach it. So if you know 5 languages and you can teach your child 5 languages, within 5 years, your child will be fluent in all 5 languages. And you think that you're outfooling that? Guys, come on. Personally, I had a girlfriend that I had lived with for almost 3 years, and she had a small child, and I got there when he was about 2 years old. I was with this kid for 3 years. I'm telling you that these children are smart. They're smart. They know when you're smoking, they know when you're drinking, they know when you're doing whatever. Okay? Don't think you're getting anything past them. So if your child is isolating himself, showing a lack of interest in anything that he had interest in, or even doing anything with anyone, chances are these are signs that something's not quite right. And if you go and ask him if he's happy or sad, he probably doesn't have the communication skills or the self-know-how yet to be able to connect it together. Okay? So do whatever it takes. Go see whoever you got to go see. Start making better changes, feeding them better food, getting them exercise, after-school activities, okay? And again, sports are going to keep your kids out of trouble, all right? Especially when they're teenagers. If they are busy with sports after school, they don't have time to get in trouble. Okay? So again, this is varying phases of depression. It can come in any race, any age, anywhere in the world, no matter what your class is or your status is. Okay? It can happen to anybody. So, thank you again for coming in to join me. This was varying phases of depression and a brief overview of young people in depression and the links to obesity. Okay? So it's never too late to live your life. This is Josh from Body by Design. Thanks.